Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine you're heading off on some big adventure, maybe climbing Kilimanjaro, like in our story today, or maybe deployed somewhere, totally remote, and boom, laundry. It suddenly becomes this like massive logistical thing.
Yeah, getting clean clothes when there's absolutely no washing machine for miles, it's a real issue.
Right. Simple, annoying, maybe even critical, depending on where you are. But what if, solving that little problem actually leads to something, well, pretty big?
It happens surprisingly often, doesn't it? That personal friction point, the thing that you experience directly, it just sparks an idea.
An idea that maybe lots of other people need solving too.
Exactly.
And that's really the heart of our deep dive today. We're looking at a specific moment from Shark Tank Australia.
Yep. Watching an entrepreneur pitch his solution, born from exactly that kind of dilemma.
Our source is the transcript from that pitch, so we get a really good look at how it all went down.
And the product is called the Scrubba Wash Bag, pitched as, get this, the world's smallest and lightest portable washing machine.
A washing machine you can fold up. It sounds almost too simple.
Well, that's the fascinating part.
So our mission here is to trace that journey. How does this thing go from a headache on a mountain to a global business asking for investment?
And maybe the most surprising bit, looking at unexpected markets, like the military.
Yeah, we definitely need to get into that. Let's dive in.
Okay, so the entrepreneur, his name's Ash Newland, and interestingly, his background, not product design, patent law.
Oh, okay. That sounds like it might be important later.
It really is. The idea itself for the Scrubba, it hit him when he was traveling, took a break from work, went around Africa, including that Kilimanjaro climb.
Kilimanjaro, I mean, that's a serious trip. You're packing layers, gear, space, and weight, or just everything. Figuring out clothes must have been a real puzzle.
It was, and that's where the Scrubba came from. He designed it thinking about travelers, campers, athletes, basically. Anyone needing to wash clothes on the go. The big selling points he pushed were how light it is, under 145 grams, apparently, and uses hardly any water, no electricity.
Okay, but hold on. It looks like a dry bag, right? How does it actually wash anything?
See, that's the clever bit. It is simple, but it works. The real innovation is inside.
Inside?
Yeah, it's lined with hundreds of these little, nodules or bumps. Flexible bumps. They act just like an old-fashioned washboard.
A washboard. Inside the bag.
Exactly. So you get the scrubbing power of a washboard, but in this, flexible, waterproof bag.
But you just toss in your clothes, a little water, some soap, seal it, and then rub the bag.
Pretty much. You rub the clothes against those nodules inside, just for a few minutes, agitate it. Then you just open it, rinse the clothes out, hang them up to dry. He even showed stuffing a pair of jeans in there during the pitch, said you just got to move them around a bit.
Huh. Simple. Okay, so personal story, clever design.
All right.
How did he get it from, idea on a mountain to pitching it to the sharks as a global thing?
He went with crowdfunding for the initial launch.
Kickstarter or Indiegogo, something like that.
Yeah, and what was really interesting about that choice was it meant they didn't just test it locally in Australia, they went global, instantly.
Right, bypassed the whole slow rollout.
Exactly. And as soon as it got traction online, the media jumped on it. Gizmodo. He said they got featured in over 100 countries.
Wow. Talk about instant exposure. It must have been wild.
Totally. He said they had pre-orders pouring in from over 50 countries almost straight away, described it as being thrown in the deep end globally.
That's one way to validate demand.
Yeah.
And fund the first run, I guess.
Yeah. He felt it worked out well, spread their risk across markets right from the start.
Okay, so he walks into the tank. He's got this global crowdfunded product. What's the ask? What are the financials looking like?
He was asking for $178,000 for 8% of the company.
Okay. Valuing it around, what, $2.2 million?
Just over, yeah. And he owned 100% at that point, sole shareholder.
Where did the initial seed money come from, if he wasn't, taking a salary yet?
Right, this is another kind of unexpected part of his story. He mentioned he'd done well years before with some speculative investments in mining stocks.
Mining stocks? Seriously?
Yep. Apparently, that gave him enough personal capital to fund the early stages, the development, getting things running. He said he'd also briefly borrowed against his house, but paid that back already.
So walked into the tank completely debt-free.
Debt-free.
Wow. Debt-free, 100% ownership, funded by mining speculation. That's not your typical startup story.
Definitely not.
And you mentioned his patent attorney background was key.
Absolutely crucial. He made a big point of it in the pitch, talked about the IP protection.
Right.
Patents granted in Australia, New Zealand, pending in 52 other countries, trademarks registered or pending in over 40 countries.
So he'd built a real fortress around it, not just a gadget.
Exactly. It was a core part of his strategy.
Okay, so debt-free, owns it all, global IP protection. Why does he even need the sharks? Seems like he's done a lot of the heavy lifting.
Yeah, and he actually addressed that.
Yeah.
He basically said, look, I can probably grow this myself to maybe $2 million in revenue, something like that.
Okay.
But he genuinely felt that to really scale it, to get well beyond that mark, he needed partners, not just for the money.
The expertise, the network.
Exactly. Expertise, guidance, and critically, their networks. He used the phrase, been there and can open some doors.
Okay, that makes total sense. Looking for that strategic value, not just a check. So what happened? What kind of offers did he get?
It got pretty interesting, competitive.
Always good TV.
Right. So first offer was from Steve, $180,000 for 15%.
15%. Okay, so valuing it lower than Ash did, around $1.2 million. What was Steve's angle?
Steve zeroed in on something unexpected, the military.
The military, there it is.
Yep. He highlighted his contacts, said he was on a board with a former head of the Army, a vice chief of defense. He basically said, flat out, I can help you get this into the military.
Wow. Was that on Ash's radar already, or was this a totally new direction from Steve?
No, Ash confirmed it. He said it was actually one of his, medium to long-term goals, especially the U.S. military, 1.5 million personnel.
That's a huge potential market.
Massive. And Ash mentioned the current standard issue for keeping gear dry is just a basic dry bag, nothing for washing.
See, that's fascinating. A dry bag keeps stuff dry, yeah, but it doesn't help with hygiene or just feeling human when you're out there for weeks.
Exactly. For someone living out of a pack, this lightweight washing thing, it's not just convenience. It could be huge for health, morale.
Game changer, potentially.
Yeah.
Did Ash say if they could adapt it for military specs?
Yeah, he confirmed they could tweak it if needed without messing with his core IP.
Okay, so Steve's offer lines up perfectly with a major goal Ash already had. What else was on the table?
Naomi came in with an offer too. $200,000 for 20%.
20%. So valuing it even lower at $1 million. What was her focus?
Travel industry, online retail, which, fit perfectly with his current market and how he'd already found success online.
Okay, so one offer for a massive new market, one for strengthening his current core. Any others?
Yep. Janine jumped in. She offered $204,000 for 17%.
17. Okay, so her valuation was closer to Steve's, around $1.2 million again?
Right.
And what was Janine bringing?
Janine really leaned into the non-financial side. Mentorship, helping navigate the business side of things, her experience with branding.
Like with Boost Juice, right?
Exactly. She talked about building that brand awareness super quickly. And significantly, she also mentioned she had great Army contacts.
Yeah. So 2 of them are flagging the military connection.
Yep.
So Ash has 3 solid offers, 2 highlighting military access. How did he play it? Did he negotiate?
He was very measured, actually, acknowledged they were all good offers, and then he did something interesting. He asked if any of them would consider partnering up.
Suggesting a team approach.
Yeah, basically saying, hey, maybe a combination of your skills would be best, putting it back on them.
Smart.
Yeah.
Looking for the best mix of help, not just the single best deal.
Very much so. There was a bit of back and forth between the sharks, murmuring about whether combining made sense.
And what was the final decision?
He made his choice. He decided to partner with both Steve and Janine.
Both of them. Okay. How did he explain that?
Very clearly. He pointed right at their strengths, Steve, explicitly for the military contacts, called them a great asset, Janine. For the mentorship, the branding, hoping she'd guide him like she'd built her own success.
Wow. So he got the specific expertise he identified needing, the military access and the branding and guidance.
It totally backs up what he said earlier about needing partners to open some doors, right? It wasn't just about the $178K. It was about getting access, getting guidance.
Okay, let's just quickly recap this journey then. The Scrubba Wash Bag starts from a personal problem, climbing Kilimanjaro.
Leads to this clever, simple design washboard inside a bag.
Launches globally like overnight via crowdfunding. Gets serious IP protection sorted.
Yep. Then hits the Shark Tank, not just for cash, but very specifically looking for strategic help to scale up.
Gets multiple offers, but makes a really calculated choice.
Partnering with Steve and Janine. Targeting Steve's military network and Janine's branding and mentorship experience really pinpoints his growth strategy.
That military angle is just so unexpected, but clearly vital to his plan and his decision. Those connections were obviously the clincher.
Which really brings us to a final thought, something for you listening to mull over.
Okay.
Given that the standard gear for soldiers in the field is often just that basic dry bag, how big a deal could something like the Scrubba actually be?
You mean beyond just nice to have?
Yeah. Think about the day-to-day reality. Hygiene, morale, just the basic need for clean clothes when you're deployed or operating remotely. How transformative could this simple, lightweight, low-water washing thing genuinely be?
It really makes you think, doesn't it? How often these huge impacts come from solving what seems like a tiny, everyday problem.
And how the biggest potential might be somewhere completely unexpected, far from where the idea first started. What other simple problems are out there just waiting for a clever fix?
Because we're unpacking a pretty cool story. It's about how, a simple travel problem turned into a global business.
Yeah, all thanks to a really old idea and one smart inventor.
We're diving into the journey of the Scrubba Wash Bag. You've probably seen it. The tiny portable washing machine thing.
Mm-hmm. And we're using some great sources today, excerpts from Ash Newland, the inventor, on Shark Tank Australia, and also the Our Story page from their website.
So our mission basically is to figure out where an idea like this even comes from.
Right. And how do you actually take it from like a rough prototype to selling it everywhere?
And then what's it like walking into that high-pressure Shark Tank environment?
Yeah, asking for investment on national TV. Let's get into it.
Okay, so it all starts back in 2010. Ash Newland, he was a patent attorney.
Right, a pretty serious career. But he decided to hit pause.
Took a break to travel Africa, climb Mount Kilimanjaro.
And, anyone who's done that kind of big trip, especially climbing, packing is a nightmare.
Oh, yeah. Cold weather gear, camping equipment. Space is just, it's at a premium. He apparently only had room for a couple of changes of casual clothes.
Which, immediately brings up that classic traveler problem.
Yeah.
How do you wash your stuff?
Exactly. No laundromats up Keeley. He needed a way to wash clothes efficiently, on the move.
And here's the clever bit. He didn't look for some high-tech solution. He looked back. Way back.
Started thinking about the basics, like how did people wash clothes for centuries?
Friction.
Ancient washboards. It's brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah.
So obvious once you hear it.
Yeah, take that basic principle, but make it, portable.
And he didn't hang around. The sources say he was literally knocking together crude prototypes just days before he left.
Wow. Days.
Yeah. And not just that. Being a patent attorney, he was also drafting a provisional patent application in that same week.
That's incredible foresight, getting that placeholder down for the idea while literally packing his bags.
Talk about multitasking under pressure. And the first test wasn't in some fancy lab.
No, it was right there in Moshi, Tanzania, just before the climb. Real-world conditions from day one.
And apparently he was astounded by how effective it was.
Imagine that feeling. Your makeshift gadget actually works right where you need it. Huge validation right there.
So, okay, let's break it down. What is the Scrubba Wash Bag for anyone who hasn't seen one?
Well, the official line is world's smallest and lightest portable washing machine.
And it pretty much is, right?
Yeah.
Weighs less than 145 grams.
Yeah, super light, like less than a small bag of sugar, no electricity needed, uses hardly any water. It's all about portability and efficiency.
And the secret sauce is inside.
Exactly. Hundreds of these little flexible knobs, nodules, whatever you want to call them. They act like that old-fashioned washboard surface.
Okay, so you rub the bag.
Yeah, you put in water, a bit of cleaning, liquid soap, detergent, whatever, seal it up, and just rub the bag from the outside for a few minutes. The clothes rub against those internal knobs.
Then rinse and hang to dry. Sounds almost too simple.
It really is straightforward. That's the beauty of it.
What about, how much can you actually wash in it?
It's designed for small loads, obviously, travel-sized loads. You can fit a couple of T-shirts, socks, underwear easily. They even say you can get a pair of jeans in there.
Jeans?
Really? Yeah. Though you'd need to sort of move them around a bit inside to make sure all parts rub against that washboard surface. But it's doable. Perfect for travelers.
Okay, so Ash gets back from his trip. He's got this working prototype. He knows it's effective, and the IP gears are turning. What was the first plan?
Well, initially, thinking like the patent attorney he was, the idea was IP and licensing.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Develop it a bit more, secure the patent properly.
And then license the technology out to a bigger company, let them handle manufacturing, marketing, all that.
Okay, logical.
Yeah.
But he did stick with that.
No, there was a pretty major pivot. Sometime in late 2011, he just decided, you know what, I'm going to do this myself.
Wow. So he quit the patent attorney job.
Yep. Quit the job, incorporated a company, Calibrate Pelakudi Ltd., and decided to bring the Scrubba to market himself. That's a massive commitment.
Huge leap of faith. And a key part of that launch involved crowdfunding, right?
Absolutely critical. January 2012, he launched on Indiegogo. And that wasn't just about getting cash.
No, it was market validation. Like, do people actually want this thing?
And did they ever? He set a really modest goal, just $2,500, probably just to cover initial tooling or something small.
Yeah.
They got nearly $22,525 in pre-orders.
Whoa, okay, almost 10 times the goal. That's incredible validation.
Incredible, yes. But also suddenly a massive headache.
Right, because now you actually have to make and ship thousands of these things pretty much overnight.
Exactly. The sources mention many sleepless nights just figuring out the logistics of manufacturing and fulfillment on that scale from basically a standing start. It's that classic startup problem: success creates its own challenges.
But that crowdfunding success did something else huge too, didn't it? It basically launched them globally from day one.
Totally. It bypassed that whole slow country-by-country retail rollout. Suddenly, they had customers all over the world.
And the media picked up on it.
Yeah, big tech and gadget sites like Gizmag, Gizmodo, Rand Stories, they estimate those stories reached probably well over 100 countries.
And the pre-orders backed that up.
Yep, came in from over 50 countries right off the bat. Just shows the universal appeal of the idea.
So that early global footprint really shaped how they operate now.
For sure. Calibrate now has warehousing in several different countries to get products to customers faster. And they're always expanding their distribution network, getting into more retailers worldwide.
It's also interesting how the customer base has shifted, or rather expanded.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't just for hardcore backpackers like Ash initially.
No, not at all. I mean, that was the origin, but now it's used by all sorts of people. Vacationers trying to pack light.
Business travelers avoiding hotel laundry fees.
Students in dorms, campers, hunters, kayakers, cyclists. Even people on cruises.
And the reasons vary, right? Packing light is one, but also saving money on laundry.
Or just the hassle of finding a laundromat in a strange city. Plus hygiene, washing your own stuff.
And water saving, which is a big deal in some places. Or just the pure convenience of being able to wash a few things whenever, wherever.
It's just a really neat, simple solution that solves a problem for a lot of different people.
And underpinning all this growth, this global business, is that intellectual property he secured right at the start.
Absolutely crucial. They have granted patents in Australia and New Zealand, and patents pending in, I think, 52 other countries.
Plus trademarks everywhere.
Yeah, registered or pending in over 42 countries. This isn't just, hey, this is our cool bag. It's legally protected innovation. That stops knockoffs, gives them a huge competitive advantage, and, importantly, makes the company valuable, makes it investable.
And with that strong IP, they're not just thinking about travelers, they're looking at potentially huge markets down the line.
Right. He specifically talked about exploring sales to armed forces, military sales. That's a medium to long-term goal he mentioned.
That would be enormous. Think about troops in the field needing to wash uniforms.
Exactly. He even mentioned targeting the U.S. military specifically with its, 1.5 million active personnel. Getting even a small fraction of that market would be transformative.
And apparently the current standard issue for the U.S. military includes something called a Sea Lion dry bag.
Yeah, which is basically just a waterproof bag to keep stuff dry. The Scrubba builds on that. It's a dry bag, but it adds the washing function with those internal nubs.
So it's like an upgrade to something they already use.
Pretty much. And Ash noted that even if the military wanted some modifications, as long as it used their core washboard tech, it would still be covered by their IP. They could potentially make a custom versions.
Which brings us neatly to, well, a really fascinating chapter, Shark Tank Australia.
Yeah, he built this solid global business, got the IP locked down, but clearly felt he needed something more to really hit the big time.
So he walks into the tank asking for $178,000 for 8% of the company.
A pretty specific ask. And on the show, he gave some interesting background, reminded everyone he was a patent attorney.
But also how he funded the early stages. Not bank loans, but by successfully investing in speculative mining stocks.
Yeah, definitely not your typical startup funding. Pretty risky, but it worked for him. It meant the company was debt-free. He'd even paid back money borrowed against his house.
And he wasn't even paying himself a salary at that point, showing real commitment.
Totally. And he made it clear, look, I'm not here just for the cash. He said he reckoned he could get to maybe $2 million in revenue on his own.
But he wanted the sharks. He wanted strategic partners.
Exactly. He needed their experience, their contacts to open some doors and push the business way beyond that $2 million mark. He was looking for smart money.
And when they asked him, who do you want? He gave that very careful, diplomatic answer at first.
Yeah, you're all amazing. Any of you could help, that kind of thing. Playing it cool.
But then the offers started rolling in. Steve was first.
Yep. Steve offered $180,000, but for 15%. And straight away, he played his main card, military contacts.
Said he was on a board with former military leaders, saw a direct line into that huge market Ash was eyeing.
Then Naomi jumped in. $200,000, but for 20%.
And her angle was different.
Yeah, her background is travel industry, online retail, very relevant to Scrubba's existing business model.
Okay. And then Janine.
Janine offered $204,000 for 17%. She talked up her brand building expertise, mentioned Boost Juice, obviously.
Her big success story.
Right. And interestingly, she also mentioned Army contacts, maybe piggybacking off Steve's point or having her own connections.
So 3 different offers, different valuations implied too. Ash picked up on that, didn't he?
Oh, yes, straight away. He pointed out that Steve's and Janine's offers valued the company higher around $1.2 million.
Whereas Naomi's valued it closer to $1 million.
He saw that difference. Shows he was really analyzing the numbers, not just the cash.
And his response was pretty clever. He didn't just accept or reject.
No, he acknowledged they were good offers, but then he sort of pushed back a bit, asked if they were flexible.
And he floated the idea of them partnering up, like maybe 2 sharks together.
Yeah, he specifically suggested maybe a 2s rather than a 3s deal. He was trying to build his ideal advisory board right there on the spot, based on their complementary skills.
And the sharks actually considered it.
They did. They immediately started crunching numbers amongst themselves, figuring out how a 2-shark deal might look, like maybe 10% each for $120 each, totaling $240K for 20%.
Which lined up with the equity Ash seemed willing to give.
Exactly. Ash then confirmed, look, the absolute most I can give away is around 20%. That pretty much sealed it. It had to be a 2-shark deal if any partnership was going to happen.
So the moment of truth. He had these offers, this potential partnership structure. Who did he choose?
He went with Steve and Janine.
Okay. Steve and Janine. And his reasoning.
It tied directly back to his strategic goals. He explicitly said Steve for the military contacts. That's the big future market.
Right.
And Janine for mentorship, leveraging her massive experience in building a brand and scaling a business. It was very targeted.
It wasn't just the highest valuation or the most money. It was about the specific expertise they brought to the table.
Precisely.
And Naomi's reaction. She wasn't chosen.
No. The sources say she was visibly not happy.
Ouch.
Yeah, and apparently commented later something like, silly man, and that there was blood in the water. Really highlights how intense and competitive those negotiations are.
Definitely. High stakes for everyone involved.
Absolutely.
So let's just kind of wrap this up. We've traced the Scrubba Wash Bag right from this simple idea.
Born out of a real need on a mountain climb.
To becoming this globally known product, built on that clever ancient concept, but protected by modern IP.
And really launched by that huge crowdfunding success, which proved people wanted it and gave them instant global reach.
And then capping it off with that strategic Shark Tank appearance. Not just grabbing cash, but actively choosing partners to unlock specific future growth areas.
Yeah, like those military sales with Steve's help and scaling the brand with Janine's guidance.
It's just a fascinating example of how you can take a low-tech, elegant solution, combine it with smart IP strategy, use tools like crowdfunding effectively, and then leverage strategic partnerships to build something significant.
Right, even getting major investment on TV.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many other simple, maybe even ancient solutions are just waiting out there?
Yeah.
Waiting to be reimagined for today's world, maybe using new platforms or business models.
Yeah. What's the next Scrubba Wash Bag? What simple problem just needs a fresh look? Makes you think.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more updates on this developing story.